Hi, my name is Kate Madden, and I live in Calgary, Alberta. I'm passionate about community, creativity, and collaboration. I also happen to be a transgender woman. And in today's video, I wanted to do a high-level overview of my coming out story, things I learned, and things that you might take value from yourself. If you think this is a video that might help you or you find value in, please like, subscribe, share, and let's get at it. The impetus for this video was that I know two folks who have come out in the last 7 days at work, and just sensing their excitement, feeding off of them, just reminded me a lot of my own experiences in the coming out process 2 years ago. And this last weekend marks 2 years since my egg cracked, as the term goes. It was 2 years ago at the end of October where I knew that I needed to rip the Band-Aid off. And so I had this really privileged life, beautiful life. I had a beautiful wife, big house. I have 6 kids. The question that I was kind of left with as I was preparing this video is, when did I first come out? And I suppose you could say that I came out back in 1996 to my friend, or maybe it was to a couple of girlfriends in the late 90s after we had broken up and I was trying to woo them with my vulnerability and authenticity after the fact. Or was it 2001, 2002 when I was in the early stages of my marriage and relationship with my former partner, where they were going to relocate somewhere else and I was going to stay in Vancouver and transition. We started having kids and there were multiple attempts at transition in the years to come. It's really a difficult question for me, is when did I come out? What happened 2 years ago though was that I ripped the Band-Aid off. I knew that I could not continue to live that life of inauthenticity any longer, and that I wasn't living for myself or for my happiness. I was living for other people's happiness. In those relationships, whether with friends, lovers, partners, I never felt authentic, I never felt honest. But ultimately, those relationships were the first ones that I needed to come out to, with my spouse, with my family, my siblings, my extended family, and my friends. So I think that over the last year that I've spoken about my former partner enough that you have a pretty good sense of kind of the story of my coming out from that. So I won't belabor that point, but I did start there. After dealing with the fallout of that, the days and weeks of arguments and tears and discussions, my younger brother likes to say he was one of the last to know, and that his nose is a little out of joint about it. But really, he was one of the first. When you think about the people I told, which was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So starting with family, I started with my siblings, my sister, my brother. I had come out to my sister back in 2005, 2006, the summer of one of those years when my former partner and I had separated previously over my desire to transition. Starting with family, I started with my siblings, my sister, my brother. I had come out to my sister back in 2005, 2006, the summer of one of those years when my former partner and I had separated previously over my desire to transition. Coming out to my brother, he wanted to know the triggers, what was causing it. Coming out to another brother who is an RN, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. I'm willing to bet my dick on it. Okay, well, you're sure. Yes, I am. And ultimately, these questions, the probing, it wasn't an invalidation of my experience or what I was going through, but rather just a confirmation and coming from a place of love, really. I came out to my cousins, my extended family. One of my dearest cousins, Brian, coming up to him. He was in Medicine Hat at a gas station filling up his gas tank, and I came out to him over the phone, We had tried to connect that week, but unfortunately our schedules didn't allow. And the reception was always the same, was I love you, I support you, and wow. You know, I had these constant conversations with my former spouse, like in bed, through sex, like just constant, like for years. The conversations would number in the thousands, I'm sure, about transition and what I thought was confusion surrounding gender, but it was really just fear of the consequences of living authentically. So ripping that Band-Aid off was one of the most profound and powerful experiences of my life, starting even with my spouse, moving into my extended family, and then moving into friends. I had told one of my closest friends, again that same summer, 2005, 2006, and like any good friend, they supported me in my repression for the next 14 years. Thank you, Paul. My oldest friend, and by oldest I mean there's a picture of him holding me the day I came home from the hospital. When I came up to him, his first comment, and you know, he's a little rough around the edges and we have made different choices in life, but he's still a great friend. Oh fuck, I could have told you something was going on with you years ago. I'd shared with him all my years of anguish and pain and therapy, but it was acceptance. It was instant acceptance from everyone. Well, I think one of the things that I was learning was that you have to start sharing and making yourself vulnerable. Through this process, though, I was getting scared. I was prejudging people's capacity for compassion. I kept expecting to have things said to me, to have people throw me out of their office. I was hyper concerned, over the top worried that I would have to change my job. I was worried about my income. I thought I had to move to Toronto, move to Vancouver. I had to leave conservative Alberta, conservative Calgary. And what I experienced was that people were, without exception, compassionate, accepting, and loving. One of the things that can help you during this time is finding your tribe. And for me, to start, really, that was on social media. I found my community through Instagram, through Reddit, and then here on YouTube. I felt like I had nowhere else to go. I was living in the basement of my house. I was dealing with divorce and separation and the toxicity that was developing in my own life at the time. And I began to yell out into the dark because I thought I was alone. And what I found was that the people in the dark began to yell back to me with words of encouragement, support, eventual friendship. I've met a number of people off of Instagram now over the last couple of years. And each of them saying, whether it was through divorce or transition, that it's going to be okay. So, you know, for me, I started with my spouse, moving into my family, my friends, and you know, the fourth piece of the puzzle was really work. And I talked about how scared I was. I started with my boss, and this is about a 6-month process from November of 2017 to September of 2018. Starting with my boss, you know, told her about the divorce, the separation, and one of the things that I've learned, especially in a professional capacity, is when you come out to people, they're going to think you're really sick, or you're dying, or you have cancer. And I started HRT, and in the process, I lost 70 pounds in a very short period of time. I shrank. And so I lost 70 pounds just when I started HRT over about a 4-month period. So people naturally thought I was dying. So I started with my boss, and the other thing is people will think you're quitting. And she thought I was quitting, but no, everything was fine there. She engaged HR. I work for one of the top employers for LGBTQ Canadians, so you know, I knew there were processes in place, and I also knew that I wasn't the only trans person here in Calgary. In fact, I would be the second one to come out. Once I came out, I found there was also a third one who was living stealth. So, you know, there's 3 of us here in probably less than 100 employees. And I think statistically that's really odd, but at any rate, I slowly came out to trusted colleagues, clients over the next few months. My role is different in that my team is across the country and I work across a pretty broad territory. So once or twice a year we get together, and so we got together at a conference where I was able to come out to 20, 25 people across the country. That was a very powerful moment in my life. And then we all went to a different conference the next few days where everyone else in all the different sales channels, so 110, 120 people, were all together. I started coming out to people who I knew, people who I worked with, people who were kind of in the same geographical area. And what had initially been like a 40-minute conversation was boiled down over the course of 3 or 4 days into like 30 seconds. Also, a lot easier with alcohol. In retrospect, one of the things I learned though is that it's exhausting, absolutely exhausting. And one of the key questions that I have through that experience is, whose responsibility is it to educate the coworkers? And while I have the capacity, both intellectually and psychologically, to do that, not every trans person will. And I've raised that point with the people at my company who are in charge of that. But all in all, 0 issues with colleagues. They were all accepting, supportive, encouraging. What was also interesting was how many people had a family member who was trans, whether that be an uncle, an aunt, a kid, a friend, my spouse's best friend's roommate from college, for example. Like, I heard this 9 or 10 times. So it was really cool just to be accepted in that capacity and so quickly and readily. I realized that this whole process wasn't about seeking happiness, but finding purpose. And in that sense of purpose, I asked a few basic questions of myself. Who am I? What do I want? Where am I going? And I think the most powerful question that I began asking myself is, why am I here? So for me, and you hear me say this in almost every video, that really began to center around creativity, collaboration, and community. And it's in that I've really found my sense of purpose and being. So things did change. The world does reference me differently. I didn't consent to being trans, and there are a lot of people who are trans and don't or can't transition. And for years, I ran desperately away from transition. All those different repeated attempts at transition, I would run away screaming back into the arms of repression and suppression. The closet is disorientingly comfortable. It will lie to you and hold you in the security of that fear. And it keeps you locked down, and it lies to you insofar as what you begin to think people's perceptions or judgment of you will be. And so you can stay in the closet, or you can acknowledge your transness. You can begin to transition. And there are some people who cannot transition for financial purposes, social purposes, safety. And a lot of people who are in their 40s, 50s, 30s, they think it's too late. I'm here at 42 years old to tell you it's not too late. And as my experience as a male to female trans woman, I walked away from privilege in every capacity of my life. Safety, going to the washroom, medical autonomy, physical autonomy, financial autonomy. I blew it all up because I knew I needed to be authentic. And if there's anything I've learned about the coming out process is that authenticity brings about a peace that even though you're stressed, even though you're anxiety ridden, you're still at peace knowing that you are yourself. And everyone deals with this stuff. So things that I noticed that changed, relationships got deeper. Old friends new friends. The relationships were deeper and more meaningful. The emotions with which I was experiencing the world, with which I was giving to the world and receiving, they became fuller. As a parent, as a friend, as a sibling. The key thing I think that the closet does is that it takes a tremendous amount of energy to maintain your mask. That dysphoria that exists, like it's there. And then once you take it away, you can look at all the other things in your life, the traumas, the pains, the hurt, and you can begin to work on that. And so for me, dysphoria came off and two things really kind of jumped out. One was anxiety. Oh my gosh, anxiety. Like learning to deal with anxiety in a whole new way, having it introduced into my world, like I wasn't disassociating anymore, but also like being hormonally female now, and I've been in female ranges for over a year, is that it's very common to experience anxiety. And I heard from women after women that, yeah, that's the way it is. The other thing that I realized about myself was that I'm codependent. And I don't know if the codependency came first and then the trans, or if it was vice versa, but at any rate, I'm a dysfunctional helper in my relationships, specifically romantic relationships. And it's even in, my 17-year marriage, and then also romantically dating since the separation. I have a lot of work to do on that, and it's hard work. But I have a great team, a great therapist, and I feel like I've made a lot of tremendous progress in the last few months. But ultimately, what I did was I found myself, and I found my purpose. And I can say here that 24 months later, since coming out, that I live a life that is full of love, because I can give that love in a way that is free, life-giving. It's completely open now. There's no lies involved, and it's full. And that has made it all worthwhile. What's your coming out experience been like? Leave a message in the comments down below. Let me know. Share with others. If you've liked this video, please like, subscribe, share, and here's to life.